They tried to sabotage my career without realizing I was the one authorizing their bonuses. Stick around, because what started as a family betrayal turned into a quiet reckoning. And if you love stories where the underestimated one writes the final check, hit that subscribe button. Success doesn't always look loud. Sometimes it wears a hoodie, works in silence, and holds the deed to the building you're standing in. I learned that 6 weeks ago, when my own family tried to block my promotion, not knowing I was the one with final sign-off authority. I'm Sienna Brooks. Publicly, I'm the Director of Innovation at Halston & Key, a private equity firm based in Denver. What my family didn't realize? I'm also the majority owner. Quietly, legally, irrevocably. I built my fortune from scratch, starting at 22 with a software patch that predicted risk trends in commodities. I sold the patent for 7 figures and launched a holding company through which I slowly acquired equity in Halston & Key. My name didn't appear, just the initials SB. Advisors RL, TD. Meanwhile, my cousin Trent strutted into Halston & Key's junior analyst program through Uncle Ray's connections. Within a year, he was hosting meetings he barely understood and mocking my low-visibility role. At family dinners, he'd toss comments like, "You still stuck in that assistant gig?" I let him. Until the day the partners convened to vote on a key promotion. Mine. Trent led the internal push against me, saying I lacked leadership presence. Unfortunately for him, I had final veto authority. I signed off on my own advancement, and at the next quarterly meeting, I recommended a downsizing of redundant junior roles, starting with Trent. The board approved. That weekend, he tried to play it cool at brunch. "Big title, don't let it go to your head," he smirked, spearing a slice of avocado toast. Aunt Denise chimed in. "Maybe Trent can give you tips on managing visibility. He's been in high finance for years." I took a slow sip of my coffee and smiled. I'll definitely keep his advice in mind. They had no idea they were eating on my tab. What they didn't know? The final acquisition documents had already been signed, sealed, and were sitting in my home, safe under a custom engraving, SB Advisors, Ltd. But Trent couldn't take it. He'd spent years basking in the glow of family approval. The charismatic nephew, the financial wunderkind with a LinkedIn profile full of big words and no results. I was the invisible one, the overly educated cousin who never made things happen. At first, he dropped by Halston & Key unannounced, posing as a concerned relative. I watched through the glass of my office as he shared casual drinks with the COO, dropping hints that I seemed burned out or directionless. Then came the rumors. Whispers in HR about questionable credentials, misrepresented achievements, even an accusation that I'd plagiarized past investment pitches. All lies, but well-planted lies. When I asked him directly, Trent just shrugged. "I'm just watching out for you," he said with that politician's smile. "You know how this industry is. One wrong step and the vultures circle." He leaned in like we were conspirators. "Don't take it personally, but I'd hate to see you crash." So I let him talk. Let him dig his own grave. Then yesterday, a sleek envelope was delivered straight to the executive boardroom. Anonymous, of course. Inside, forged statements, manipulated wire transfer records, doctored performance metrics, all targeting me. The board called an emergency meeting for Monday morning. They thought something serious was brewing. And they were right. Last night at dinner, Trent was practically glowing. "The board wants me to sit in," he said casually, spearing his steak. "Sounds like there's a shift coming. Top down?" And Denise clapped her hands. Uncle Ray raised his glass. "Finally, this company needs strong hands." No one questioned why I hadn't been invited to this so-called shift. Despite leading the innovation division they were supposedly realigning. But while Trent was sipping Merlot, I was finalizing a 38-page internal dossier, a complete audit of every shady move he'd made in the past quarter, and at the end, one final attachment, Halston & Key's updated ownership ledger. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., the board would meet. They thought I was the subject. They had no idea I owned the room. They forgot who signs the board's compensation packages. I arrived at Halston and Key by 7:30, iced Americano in hand, composed and steady. By 8:45, Trent came swaggering through the glass-paneled lobby in his flashiest blazer, our aunt and uncle trailing behind him like they were attending a press event. All grins, no clue. "Is the board ready for us?" he asked the front desk, voice smooth, charm dialed to 11. From my second-floor corner office, I watched them being led to the executive suite. I didn't need to ask if the board was ready. They'd each received my midnight report. If you've ever waited for the moment when truth walks in and ego walks out, don't blink. Hit that subscribe button, because what happened next was the end of their illusion and the beginning of mine. At 9 o'clock sharp, I stood, straightened my jacket, and walked the polished hallway toward the boardroom. No hesitation. No second thoughts. The chair of the board, Leonard Halston, was already mid-sentence when I entered. "These are serious allegations against Miss Brooks. Apologies for being late," I said, smoothly taking my place at the head of the table. Not a pause, not a stutter. Trent turned in his chair, confused, blinking fast. His smirk fell like a curtain. "Sienna, this is a closed session," he said sharply. "You weren't asked to join." I folded my hands. "No, Trent. I just was never uninvited. You can't run a board meeting without its majority owner, would you?" Silence, utter and perfect. Aunt Denise furrowed her brow like trying to solve a puzzle she didn't know existed. Uncle Ray's lips parted, but no sound came. "What are you saying?" Trent finally scoffed. "Halston and Key is privately held. There's no majority." "It was," I replied, nodding at my assistant, Nora, who stepped forward and handed out black folders, each marked confidential, until 4 months ago when Halston and Key was acquired by SB Advisors LTST. Would you like to guess who's behind that? Chairs shifted, pages turned, the murmurs began. Trent's voice cracked. "You? That's impossible. You're just—" I smiled. "Careful, you're talking to the majority shareholder now." And just like that, the room belonged to me. "Would you?" I asked softly. Nora gave a small nod and tapped her tablet. The speakers in the boardroom hissed, then came to life, filling the space with Trent's voice. Smooth, calculated, and venomous. "She's book smart," he said in one clip, "but she doesn't have the spine for leadership. Trust me, the board'll figure that out." The room stiffened. No one moved. Another recording followed, colder than the last. "Honestly, she's a diversity win. They had to pick someone." Gasps rippled. You could feel the air change, like a storm rolling in without thunder. In seconds, the carefully built illusion Trent had wrapped himself in began to disintegrate. Right on top of him. "Has anyone actually looked at her division's books lately?" His voice continued, laced with implication. "I'm hearing whispers." Each comment, once whispered behind closed doors, now played aloud in his own voice. No context left to spin, no scapegoats to blame. Across the table, Trent sat frozen, color drained from his face. I stood slowly and held up a familiar manila folder. "And then there's this," I said clearly. "The anonymous evidence the board received last week." Inside, forged transaction histories, doctored screenshots, false accusations of fraud and misconduct, all aimed at me. "Deliberate sabotage," I continued. "False claims, fabricated documents, character assassination, and all of it easily discredited." "I was protecting the firm," Trent stammered. "Sienna, you've never been a leader. You're the side character, the boring one." "No," I said calmly. "I'm the one who built what comes next. And now, I'm the one holding you accountable for every whisper, every lie, and every risk you forced this company to bear." For once, Aunt Denise broke her silence. "Sienna, surely, you're not going to destroy your cousin's life over this?" "As if he didn't try to destroy mine," I said, voice steady, "as if he didn't walk in here expecting to watch me fail." Uncle Ray raised a hand weakly. "We were just here to support Trent." "No," I said, locking eyes with him. "You were here to do what you've always done, Bet against the wrong child. I turned back to the board and lifted my chin. Apologies for the tone of today's meeting, but I needed every one of you to understand what's truly at stake. Trent Brooks has violated the ethical and legal standards of this firm in a sustained, targeted effort to undermine my leadership. A long pause. This wasn't just about me, it was an attack on Halston and Key's future. Leonard Halston, the board chair, cleared his throat. Ms. Brooks, what action are you requesting? I folded my hands calmly on the table. First, I request that all allegations against me be formally dismissed on the basis of verified documentation and authenticated audio recordings. Several heads nodded. No one spoke. Second, I continued, I move for immediate disciplinary action against Mr. Trent Brooks for corporate misconduct. I paused, allowing the weight of it to settle, then added, I also request that a formal report be delivered to Mr. Brooks' regulatory board and current financial affiliations, with complete supporting materials. Trent jolted upright in his seat. You can't, he rasped, his voice cracking. You'll ruin everything I've worked for. Like you tried to ruin mine? I asked, still composed. The difference is, I brought evidence. You brought fiction? I turned back to the board. Lastly, I request that Trent Brooks, and both of our family members present, be permanently barred from Halston and Key premises. Any attempt to contact employees or interfere with operations should result in immediate legal action. Aunt Denise gasped. Sienna, please, she cried, mascara streaking. We're still family. I let out a soft, bitter laugh. Family celebrates your wins. Family shows up when you're down. Family doesn't try to erase your legacy out of envy. I reached into my briefcase and pulled out one final folder, sliding it across the table. Its gold-embossed cover gleamed beneath the recessed lights. This, I said, is the acquisition agreement from my first fintech company. I sold it for $50 million 0 cents when I was 27. Yes. The second? A blockchain auditing platform. Sold 2 years later for $180 million 0 cents. Clean, private, and unpublicized. I turned to Uncle Ray and met his stunned gaze. I could have bought you that Telluride cabin you always talk about. Could have floated every one of Trent's failed ventures without breaking stride. But I didn't. They stared down at the paperwork, watching in silence as the numbers rewrote the version of me they had clung to for years. I stayed quiet, I said softly, because I needed to know who stood with me when they thought I had nothing. I looked at Trent. You all failed that test. He sat slumped. You're destroying my career, he whispered. No, I replied. You destroyed it the day you tried to sabotage mine. The only difference is, I have the receipts. You have the guilt. I gathered the folders and stood. This meeting is adjourned, I told Leonard. Please secure the full transcript. Then I turned to them, one last time. Trent, Aunt Denise, Uncle Ray, I said quietly. Security will see you out now. Wait. Trent's voice cracked as I neared the door. Please. He took a step forward, hands trembling. I was jealous. I couldn't stand that you were finally winning. His words were soft, worn down. We can fix this, right? We're still family. I paused in the doorway, turned slowly. Do you know what separates us, Trent? He looked up. His eyes were wet, his pride gone. When you thought I was struggling, you kicked me lower, I said, voice steady. And when I was finally thriving, I stayed silent so you wouldn't feel small. I let out a quiet breath. That's the difference between building something real and playing pretend with borrowed status. The weeks that followed told their own story. Trent was formally terminated within days. The internal investigation confirmed every claim. His exit from Halston and Key was quiet but permanent. His name faded from the firm's directory like it had never belonged there. Meanwhile, word of my majority ownership swept through the Denver financial community. Suddenly, the same networks that once dismissed me were requesting meetings, keynote slots, partnerships. My parents left voicemails, hesitant, apologetic. Trent sent an email. Then his attorney followed up with a vague statement about personal growth. and new beginnings. I archived them all. 3 months later, I was reviewing late-night performance metrics when Nora buzzed my office. "Someone's here," says it's personal. It was Trent, but not the version I remembered. No designer watch, no tailored suit, just jeans, worn sneakers, a gray hoodie. No bravado, just exhaustion. "I'm not here to argue," he said softly, raising a hand. "I just wanted to leave something." He set a manila folder on my desk. Old emails, passwords, the fake accounts I used, everything I did to undermine you. "It's all there. I'm forwarding it to the board too. No edits, no spin, no control." I said nothing. "Why now?" I finally asked. He looked down. "Because you were right. You were building something. I was just imitating it and resenting you for doing it better." He turned to go, then paused. "I'm starting over. Interning at a local fintech incubator. No fake titles this time. I don't expect forgiveness." He opened the door slowly, but letting me fall, that taught me more than anyone ever did. He begins to step out. "Trent," I said quietly. I said gently. Trent paused, glancing back. Just enough hope in his eyes to remind me of who he used to be. Before the titles, before the posturing, just Trent. "Send me your resume in a year," I said, soft but clear. "Not for leadership," I added. "But if you're serious about starting over the right way, we're always open to people willing to earn it from the ground up." A single tear welled in his eye. He nodded. No spin. No smug parting words. Just quiet acceptance. Then he turned and walked away. 6 months later, Halston and Key had grown far beyond even my most ambitious projections. We'd broken into 3 new verticals: ethical crypto infrastructure, inclusive venture capital, and sustainable AI forecasting. We onboarded a new class of socially conscious investors. And we launched an accelerator fund dedicated to overlooked founders, especially women of color in finance and tech. It's real, it's resilient, and it's mine. My parents still reach out now and then, usually when they want something, or when they're name-dropping their visionary daughter in rooms where they once avoided mentioning me at all. I keep my replies polite but distant. The validation I used to chase, I don't need it anymore. The corner office they said I'd never earn now overlooks downtown Denver. On clear evenings, I sit beside the glass as the sky fades to fire, and I think about everything: betrayal, endurance, and the strange freedom that comes with being underestimated. Last week, a holiday card arrived. No apologies, no guilt, just a handwritten note from Trent. "You didn't win because of us. You succeeded in spite of us. I'm finally learning how to build for real. Maybe that's what power really is. Not loud, not vengeful, just earned. Undeniably earned. Thank you for listening, for seeing me when even the people who claim to love me refuse to. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been the quiet one, the invisible one, the underestimated one? Tell me your story in the comments. Let's start a conversation that matters. And don't forget to like and subscribe, not just to follow my next chapter, but to step boldly into your own. Because success, it's not about proving others wrong. It's about finally proving yourself right.